T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Hey, welcome to KIdmin Training To Go, and we have another quick answers, and I have Troy and Brenda Renter with me here today, and Troy and Brenda are great friends of the network. They actually served in our network as worked in a couple churches in the network and kids pastor, and Troy is was a kids pastor, now he's a lead pastor in Iowa. And he also serves as the district children's ministries director for the Iowa network. And Brenda is a behavior interventionist working in schools. And so I asked them. We were in a conference together in Iowa a couple weeks ago, and they did a session on just behavior in classrooms and helping manage behavior in classrooms. And one of the things they talked about was 4 rules. And I remember hearing them talk about this previously, and I thought, all of our churches could use this training on these 4 rules. Brenda says they work in any situation. They're great rules. And so I'm going to turn it over to Troy and Brenda. Thanks for being here with us, and we're glad that you're with us today. Anything you want to say as any opening remarks on this?
No, man. Thank you for having us. Yes, and just great to be with you, my friend, and being on there. We love Wisconsin, and
Good to be in Wisconsin. We
yes.
miss Wisconsin.
Yeah, so I know this is going to be dated when I say this, but Iowa trounced Wisconsin the other night in football. Is like terrible, but
Yeah.
whatever.
which we don't mind because we don't really like the puke and black, so we don't root for them.
That's
Okay.
it. I love Wisconsin. Anything
Yeah.
Wisconsin. So.
Yeah,
Right.
so we're glad to have you with us. So I know we have a couple slides that to go along with this. So would you like me to bring those up right now?
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, here
Jump
they
right
go.
on in. Yeah, the first one I'm just going to talk about here a little bit, and then Brenda will kind of give the history. When it came to the 4 rules and when we started talking about it, we were looking for the things that would bring in a child, meet the needs in a child. And every child needs stability, structure, safety, and security. And just like 4 legs on a table, 4 corners of a room. And if you take one of those things away, what will happen? Of course, the table will fall over, the chair would tip over, or a wall would come down. And so when we look at these, each child needs something stable. So when we're taking a look at these rules, and when we talk a little bit about them, it brings stability to their home. So a lot of kids that have behavior, we've said it a lot, all behavior, good or bad, has to be met by a need. And it's expressed in a need. And so when we look at doing that, we're bringing that to reach that. The rules help bring structure, simple enough for the kids to remember, but also letting them know that, hey, there are boundaries, just like in a room where you have 4 corners or 4 walls. There is structure to our area, and they can't pass it. Safety. The kids know what to expect. They already know what to be part of. They already know that we're going to protect them. And when we introduce those rules, you'll get a better idea of how the safety factor fits in there. And then security. It gives also all the kids, no matter what age they're at, no matter what level they're at, gives them that mindset. Oh, this is what's going to happen tonight. This is what's going to be going on. And we know where the boundary lines stop and begin. And it kind of sets all 4 of those up. So when the kids come into our program, they already have the stability, the structure, the safety. They just already know what they're walking into, and it's not a surprise to them. And so I'll have Brenda go ahead and introduce the rules and talk about that.
All right. So before we do that, I just wanted to say how they came about is I was working as a school-based interventionist, and I helped a therapist do group therapy, and she was from the Therapy Play Institute out of Chicago. That's where her training came from. Anyway, she had these 4 rules, and we had a chaotic youth group, children's ministry, because we bussed in all these kids, and there was just chaos, and the leaders were going crazy. And so we sat down with her and talked about what these 4 rules are and why they were important. And she explained them, and we incorporated them in the children's ministries, the junior high ministries, and the youth ministries throughout that church. And dynamics changed. It was amazing to see. And the leaders were all on the same page. Every leader knew the rules. The kids knew the rules, and it changed everything. So that's why we went ahead with them. So we'll start with the rules, and then I'll explain how they work.
Yep.
I'm saying, there we go. Okay, so these are the 4 simple rules, and they do have to go in these order. And with the younger kids, I always taught and do motions. And one of the things is when kids are naughty, they're disobeying, less words is more. So if you have more words, they're not hearing you. So we teach these kids, all the kids, the 4 rules. We go over each rule at the beginning of every class, every group, every time we have a Wednesday night service, and we go over it with them. Now the high school just posts them because the kids already know them and they're there. And we did middle school, and the kids would each take turns going in front of the class saying what the 4 rules are and kind of making it a cheer. Well, that gave them ownership of these 4 rules. And if they believe in it and they say it out loud, then they're going to most likely follow it. So rule number 1 are adults in charge. So when do you say that? Well, adult, like a kid is arguing with you. I don't want to do that. Or, not listening to you, or wants to do something else, or isn't. So you say adults are in charge. You don't have to get into a power struggle. Power struggles never work. You're never going to win a power struggle with a kid. They will always win. I guarantee it. I've never won one, and I always feel defeated after I get into one with a kid. Like how I'm the adult, I should not know better. So I say to a kid, adults are in charge. Now, the other thing is when I'm going to go through all 4 of them, and then I'm going to show you what we do on each week and how we demonstrate that. So adults are in charge. No hurts on the inside or out. So he hit me. He called me a name. He poked me. He did, he hurt my feelings, whatever it is. No hurts on the inside or out covers that behavior. The third one is we stick together. You have a kid that is over there playing and you want them here, or we're all over here and they're over there. They're under the table. You want them sitting at the table. We say we stick together, and we explain each of the rules to the kids that when we're in a group and we're doing activities, unless you ask permission from adult who is in charge, you have to stick with us and in this area. And the last one, of course, is have fun. Now, Troy mentioned the 4 stability comments about how there's got to be 4 legs on a table. There's 4 corners in the wall to make it stand up. Well, there's also 4 rules. Anything more than that, kids will not remember. But the other thing is, I always tell the kids, when you follow these 3 rules, we always have fun. And so here's what I do on a night. We say, okay, so the kids all come together, depending on how many kids you have. We had a larger group, so we didn't do this, but in a smaller group, you can all get in a circle. I taught 5th grade for a while, and when I lived out in New Jersey, and I incorporated this to my class, and it was the worst behaving class in the school, which is why they gave it to me. And they were like, how did you get your kids in order? And I'm like, the 4 simple rules. So the whole entire school then decided to incorporate these rules and saw the behavior changing. So when you have it, when all the different grades and all the people are on board, every leader knows it, it's easy. So you don't have to say, well, the one class knows it, or the boys follow these rules, the girls follow these rules. No, this is very consistent. So we start out with rule number 1, adults are in charge. Now, high school, don't do the motions, but kids do. Adults are in charge. I point to myself. I say, point to another adult. They sometimes are silly and will point to themselves, and we say, nope, adults are in charge. And when we say adults are in charge, that means you point to yourself. You don't repeat and go, no, I'm in charge. You just say adults are in charge. Don't say I'm in charge. Adults are in charge. The same exact words. And the other thing that happens when you say adults are in charge is, let's say a kid is disruptive and doing something that's disobeying, and you told him to do something, and you just look at him and go, hey, buddy. And you go like this. What does this mean? And he'll say, adults are in charge. And when that kid says it, usually that's enough to change their thinking. And they'll be like, oh, I'm not following directions. Adults are in charge. So that's what we say. So then we do rule number 2, no hurts, like this, like safe, no hurts on the inside or outside. And then we say, what's an inside hurt? I ask for volunteers. What's an inside hurt? They all know, they say it. And then I say, what's an outside hurt? And then they also don't demonstrate, just show, just speak it. And they also know that, and they say it. So sometimes if, a kid is doing something, we say, instead of telling them, stop being mean to Betty, you say, what's rule number 2? No hurts on the inside or outside. What are you doing? Oh, yeah, that was an inside hurt. So kids will start to remember. So you're asking them a question. You're not telling them to change a behavior. You're asking them a question, and they're owning it up themselves. And the third one is stick together. Obviously, we know we do that with kind of like this. We just we don't link elbows, but we kind of like touch elbows in a circle, or I go like this, stick together. We're all in this together. And we just explain that one. So again, and then lastly, have fun is just like, hey, have fun. Yay. And, so and I said, when we follow the first 3 rules, we have fun. So these are so simple. But one of the things I did want to mention is that when you are talking to kids, rather than saying, stop the behavior, you can ask them, what's rule number 2? And there's a thing in their brain, and I call it the changing of the channel. Like when you ask a question, you automatically stop and think. But when you're told something, and if you're oppositional defiant, I'm not going to do that. But when you say, what's rule number 2? They got to stop and think. And we also every week say it out loud at the beginning of every class. We say it out loud.
Questions. I was going to ask that question
every
week.
And they verbalize it, because verbalizing brings ownership. When a child says it out loud. And when a child's not. So we did have a kid, we were doing it in circles, and he was outside of the circle. And I'm like, you got to come in and stick together. And then the kids will say, rule number 3, stick together. When we do our groups, you all got to stick together. We can't have fun until we're all, doing this together. So, and then the high school students right now have the same 4 rules, exact wording. They have it on their poster in the walls in their youth center, because the kids that have come up already know them. So the youth pastor's like, that's dumb for me to have 4 other rules or stuff or any other number. 4 is enough. But it really does pretty much cover all the behaviors that we see.
Right. And we've also built them so that all of our church policies, things like that, so these 4 rules fit those policies. So there's any policy, anything that we would have that we would need, pretty much fit into these 4 rules in some way, some form, so that it makes it easy to understand. It's easy for even the parents. When a parent calls, my child said this, well, our rule number 2 is, hey, no hurts on the inside out. We don't, that's why they had to come home tonight, because they weren't being safe.
We had an example a few weeks ago where we had a kid that's actually in a therapeutic school, and he's very disruptive sometimes, but he's been making progress here. But he started cussing words, saying things that were not nice. And then he was not following any direction. And then he left the room and stormed out mad. So when we went to talk to him, I said, rule number 2. Because that was an inside hurt. The cussing is an inside hurt. That hurt me. Rule number 2. And what's rule number 3? Well, he was mad. He didn't say. And I said, rule number 3 is stick together. So you left. So because you broke these 2 rules, we have to take you home, because this behavior can't be here. But you're welcome to come back next week. Just leave that behavior at home. Yep. And he did, and he was perfect the next week.
Because by breaking those 2 rules, he broke the structure, and he become unsafe. So we couldn't keep two of those needs that every child has to have. And then the stability in the classroom, everybody's worried about what's happening to him rather than focusing on what the leaders were trying to do, what activity we were working on, those type of things. And every parent knows that when we take a child home, we bring them home, we always tell every parent at least 3 positive things about their child. And then we tell them why they came home that night. And then, but we always tell them they are welcome to come back the next week.
But just not the behavior.
Yeah.
So that's
Leave the behavior at home.
That's basically it. It sounds too easy.
It is easy. Let me give you a couple scenarios, a couple questions that I had.
Sure.
And see if we can come up with some solution on it.
Boy.
So I have boys in my classroom, and sometimes we're sitting around the table, and sometimes they get into each other's space. They aren't necessarily hurting each other, but they're causing a distraction. And what rules would you emphasize with that?
Okay, so did you give them any directive, like to be quiet and stop and listen?
Oh yeah.
Well, then it's adults are in charge because you're not following that directive.
That's kind of what I thought it would be the adults are in charge. And so, for example, like if we're talking about something, and I asked them, hey, raise your hand if you want to ask a question, whatever. And sometimes kids start blurting it out. That would be an adults are in charge. Was that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you give them a directive and they don't answer. But the other thing with the boys messing around, if you're doing some activity, they're not sticking together because they're doing their own thing.
Okay, so it's more of a mental breakaway.
Yeah. And you can say what actually, once you get these rules in place and the kids know them, and you'll say to them, what's rule number 3? What are you doing? I'm not doing what you're doing. Okay, that's cool. Let's get back to it,
And it's interesting that the way you did that is because you actually allowed them to think through how their behavior fits within that context. And actually it's a little bit higher level thinking for them. So, I mean, some of them might not get it, but some may be more concrete and not abstract thinkers. But I think that's very helpful to stretch them to think like that. So how long, Troy, Brenda, how long have you been instituting these rules in your groups?
Let's see.
We did it in about 2010 when we were in Oskaloosa, and we still use them to this day. Yeah.
At every church level we've been.
We moved churches, obviously, so we've been doing it here for 6 years.
Yeah.
And we did it there for about 6 years.
About 6 or 7 years in Oskaloosa, and then the 2 years we were in Marlton, 2.5 years we did that there. And Marlton, of course, was a much larger church, so we discovered that it fits almost any context. It doesn't matter what size of church you're in. Using the same 4 rules works at every level. If you're really small, like we are right now in a revitalizing church, or in a church where we have, one of our kids' churches was over 80 to 90 kids every Sunday, and the other one was 40 to 50 every Sunday morning. So it works in that, and even worked in our preschool.
Wednesday, we did. We in the Oskaloosa, they did Royal Rangers Missionettes.
Yep.
We did that there. We did it in the youth ministry, junior high ministry. Yeah.
So the context is large, small,
everywhere.
The
Classroom, school
age
teacher.
from preschool up to high school. It sounds like.
Yep.
you visited them. Well, I think this is important. I think a couple of takeaways that I had. One was, just the simplicity of it. You don't have to have a different set of rules every week, and in having it be across various classes and groups. That just helps the students as they move from group to group, that they kind of have a built-in knowledge of what's expected of them and how that works with that. So obviously you've seen it work because you've seen it continue to produce fruit, and I guess it would be kind of goofy to keep doing something that's not working. So.
Right.
Yeah, it works.
It works. And it does take a little time to get it implemented and get going. And then also the buy-in, getting all of our leaders to buy into it. And but what it did we found is that our leaders were having less power struggles, um, there was less arguing, and also it was easier to bring the classroom back to connecting, back to doing it, because now we kind of say, hey, remember, if we're not doing all three, we can't do the fourth one. It was fun.
Right.
And we sometimes will just throw that out there, and our whole group will come back together, and the kids will even remind each other at times. So it's after a while they kind of get used to the structure that's been built around them.
Well, and I like what you just talked about in the beginning of this, is that you have that four-legged stool or table, and that, you provide stability and security, and having good rules. I think that for kids, they need to know what the boundaries are.
Right.
Yep.
And there are some kids that will push the boundaries. I get all of that. But these are really good for, if they don't know what the boundaries are, they're going to break them.
Right.
And so this is very helpful. Well, Troy and Brenda, I want to thank you for being with us for this quick answers on the four rules. Some of you may recognize Troy from another KIdmin Training To Go we did recently, and if I can, I'll have that posted right up above us. He did Healthy Connections of Conversations about kids and trauma. And so if you're interested in how to minister to kids who are experiencing trauma, you can watch that video, and we'll have that posted along with this one, so you can watch it. Again, thanks, Troy and Brenda, for being with us and sharing with us these four rules. God bless
Thanks
you.
for asking us.
Thank you for asking us. It was our honor. Hey,
We
thank
love
you,
it.
my friend.
Thank you.